So Buster Murdaugh is preparing his defense for the Stephen Smith trial. If you don't know, Stephen Smith and Buster Murdaugh allegedly had a romantic relationship with each other. Um, the dad found out, Alec Murdaugh, and they staged the accident near the Murdaugh's home with Stephen Smith. No car was found, no murder weapon was found. He was just laid in the road. So now we getting worried that Buster Murdaugh is preparing his defense. He did hire lawyers, from what I'm told. The body is exhumed, and they will start processing the body for evidence. Check this small clip out.
Breaking news coming into our Court TV newsroom. Buster Murdaugh is speaking out, asking to be left alone following his father's murder conviction. The surviving Murdaugh son is specifically asking the media to stop speculating about his involvement in the 2015 death of Stephen Smith. Buster's statement reads, quote, "I've tried my best to ignore the vicious rumors about my involvement in Stephen Smith's tragic death that continue to be published in the media as I grieve over the brutal murders of my mother and brother. I love them so much and miss them terribly. I haven't spoken up until now because I want to live in private while I cope with their deaths and my father's incarceration. Before, during, and since my father's trial, I've been targeted and harassed by the media and followers of this story. This has gone on far too long. These baseless rumors of my involvement with Stephen and his death are false. I unequivocally deny any involvement in his death, and my heart goes out to the Smith family. I'm requesting that the media immediately stop publishing these defamatory comments and rumors about me," end quote. Several docuseries and articles have implied that Buster Murdaugh had a homosexual relationship with Stephen Smith before Smith was killed. The death was ruled a hit and run. Stephen Smith's family announced last week that his body will be exhumed following the reopening of the death probe by state authorities. Now, all of this comes following the conviction of Alec Murdaugh for the murders of his wife Maggie and his son Paul. Now, that happened, of course, earlier this month, and Murdaugh then sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars for those crimes. I want to bring back in my guests, forensic criminologist Dr. Laura Petler and attorney Joe Tamburino. Dr. Laura, tell us, behind the scenes, what might be going on in terms of the reopening of the death investigation into Stephen Smith's killing?
Sorry, Julie. So the death investigation into Stephen Smith is going to require his body to be exhumed. And anytime there's an exhumation involved with in a case like this, first of all of that has to be documented very thoroughly, that all the steps are being taken to ensure that it's the right body that's being removed, so on and so forth. Then it goes for autopsy. So I don't know about the first autopsy and can't speak to that, but the second autopsy, a lot of that is going to depend on how well the body is preserved, how much information they can get post-exhumation. And I've been involved in cases like this where we've had to go back and look at victims who have been exhumed. And at autopsy, we're trying to take measurements, we're trying to take other information from the body that might not have been collected at the beginning, because that's really the only reason that you want to exhume a body. So from the standpoint of evidence on the body, that's that piece. The other pieces are the multidisciplinary aspects of this investigation, primarily the victimology. The victimology is oftentimes, it leads to the smoking gun of who would want to potentially hurt the victim and why that person would need to be dead in order for an offender to benefit. So looking into the victimology and really building that up, that would be the core of my investigation. And then I would use everything else to plug in and compare to the victimology, using that as the litmus test. And that's really going to get to the manner of death. That's going to solve for manner of death. Was it an accident, or is there some kind of foul play involved? So it's quite complex, and it will take a long time if it's done properly.
Well said, Dr. Laura. Thank you for that. Joe Tamburino, I would think investigators would want to talk to Alec Murdaugh about this. We know that he was one of the first people there at that crime scene, and why? Joe, what might that look like now that he's in state prison? You know, obviously going to continue fighting this case, continue with the appellate process, but how might that look if investigators want to talk to him?
Well, I would imagine he's not going to talk. I mean, right now, you know, he's presumably going to serve the rest of his life in prison. He's doing his appeal, but I don't see a reason why he would talk. Perhaps to make sure that his son is not implicated in this, perhaps. But if he doesn't have any information on it, I don't see why he would talk. However, the situation with Buster, here's what I'm wondering about. Yes, there's a lot of speculation that these two kids knew each other, but so far we've received no evidence of that. There's been no social media evidence, texting, emailing, nothing like that. You know, the death happened in 2015. That wasn't that long ago. Of course, we had Facebook by then. Of course, we had many ways that young people communicate with each other. So we really don't even know if these. So I think a lot of information needs to come out on that issue.
Appreciate it, Joe. We'll leave it there for now, but of course we're going to continue following any developments we hear in the death investigation to Stephen Smith's death.
Yeah, it was something ABC 2020. I didn't watch it.
Well, was it a new interview or was it from that old interview?
I would assume if it had him on TV, it had to be the old one. He has not gone on TV since.
He hasn't. 10-4. All right. Well, I mean, was it the same old stuff with a bunch of innuendo and false stuff, or were they being semi-truthful?
Yeah, but I'd love to be able to give you some insight, but I didn't watch it and I didn't seek out anything, any transcripts from it. I don't know. I know.
It ain't no big deal.
I would assume it's the same old thing. Brooklyn told me some stuff that was on it, and it was stuff that's wrong. So I mean, it's just that same old
Stephen Smith and Gloria and all that bullshit.
You know, I think it probably had to touch on that. I think this one hit maybe a little bit more on the boat wreck.
I gotcha.
I just know that there was some stuff that Brooklyn said that was said in the little show, and it's just stuff that's not important, but it just shows that if they are willing to state that in fact, that they just don't know what they're saying, because it's just stuff that's not true.
I understand. So are they still trying to say out there like there's some mystery surrounding Gloria's death, about how she died?
Saying what now?
About how she died, are they still trying to make some innuendo there?
About Gloria?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are they still saying anything about Stephen Smith, even though Andy Savage?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody.
No connection to us?
Yeah, I don't think anybody took the heart of Andy Savage.
Did Slam ever come out and say there's no connection?
No,
even though they told Andy Savage that?
No, Sled has not released anything. They didn't even release a statement about what was this most recent thing. There was something came out not long ago talking about how there's been like a breakthrough in evidence to do with like the homicides, and Sled wouldn't even come out and issue a statement saying that there has been no further evidence like gathered.
10-4.
So personally, I would not count on Sled to help in any way.
I was just curious. All right, my man. You get some rest, and now, what time you get on the road tomorrow?
About 8 a.m.
All right, I'll give you a call sometime when I can. Buster, what's going on with COVID out there? It must be going crazy.
It's this new variant. It's
Omni COVID or whatever.
Omicron. It's
Omicron. That's it. On TV Friday, Bus. I saw John Marvin on there for just a